Hey everyone, John here from testprepinsight.com, and today I want to talk about a simple question that I see all the time. How long should you study for the GMAT? It might seem like an easy question and answer, but there's actually a lot to unpack here, so if you stick with me to the end of this video, I'm going to help you work out how long it's going to take you individually to study for this exam. And by the way, since I'm just going to be covering the high points in this video today, if you find you need some more detail at any point, we also have a full written guide over on our website that has way more information. The quickest way to get there is probably just to Google Test Prep Insight GMAT Study Plan. It's a fast way to find it. All right, so as you can probably guess, the answer to the question of how long it takes to study for the GMAT is, it depends. I really wish I could give you a clean and neat answer here, like it takes exactly 200 hours for everyone to study for the GMAT, but there's just no one-size-fits-all approach. How long you're going to need to study for the GMAT depends on a number of factors, including your current score on a baseline practice test, your target score, how long it's been since you were in school, and closely related to that, how strong your math, data, and language skills are, and obviously how much time you can commit to studying each week. Each one of these factors is going to impact the number of hours that you're going to need to spend studying. Think of it kind of like a sliding scale. So let's consider each of these factors in more detail. First, your current score on a diagnostic exam. If you haven't already, you need to take a practice test to set your baseline score without any preparation. Your performance on this practice test will play a huge part in determining how much time you're going to need to study, because obviously if you crush this practice test, then you don't need to study as much. However, if you score poorly, you clearly need more time to study. So first order of business, do a practice test and see what your baseline score is. Then second, your target score. This is probably going to depend on what MBA program you're trying to get into. If you're trying to get into Wharton, you'll need to score a 645 or better, at a minimum. But if you're just trying to get into a part-time evening program at a state school near where you live, you might only need a score of a 545, and that's a huge difference. If you only need to score around the 50th percentile versus the 90th percentile, that's going to require a lot less study time. The next, how long has it been since you were in school? If you've been out of school for some time, I can almost guarantee that the initial practice test is going to seem pretty hard for you. And that's simply because the GMAT tests you on concepts that you don't use in everyday life, especially on the quant and data insight sections. Fractions, exponents, and integer properties. If you're like most people and don't use these math concepts in everyday life, and you've been out of school for a while so you haven't seen them in class, then you're going to need some time to refresh. Then the next factor, how strong are your math, data, and verbal skills? And this ties in closely with my last point about how far removed from school you are. Maybe you've been out of school for a while, but maybe you're very naturally gifted with math, or you can read graphs and charts like a pro. Then you'll need a lot less time to study for a given section of the exam. For some people, the math or verbal or data concepts tested on the exam are just very easy to learn, or they're already naturally gifted with them. So just be honest with yourself about your natural skills and knowledge base. That can affect your study time as well. And then lastly, the final thing that factors in is how much time you can commit to studying each week. Now, obviously this won't affect the overall amount of time that you need to study, that is the total number of hours, but it will affect your timeline. So if you determine you need 150 hours to study, but you can only study 10 hours per week, your study schedule is going to look a lot different than if your schedule is currently free and you can study 50 hours per week. So this factor affects your calendar timeline, assuming that's what you're thinking of by how long it'll take you to study. So once you figure out each of these factors, you can start pinpointing how long it's going to take you based on your situation to prep for the GMAT. Now, the general rule of thumb in the GMAT prep industry is that it's going to take you 100 to 200 hours of work to fully prepare. Sometimes it's less and sometimes it's more. For example, if you want a truly elite score and you're starting from a very low baseline and you need a total refresh on all of these academic concepts, then plan on being right around that 200-hour mark, if not maybe a little bit more. But if you've got a strong starting point, only need a mid-tier score, and you're already strong in one of these tested subjects, whether because you're fresh out of school or just naturally gifted with it, you might only need 100 hours to study, if that. It just really depends, which I'm guessing isn't what you wanted to hear, but it is the truth. Now, with all of that said, if you want something that's more science than art in creating a study schedule and nailing down your number and timeline, I'd recommend using a prep course to study. Rather than guessing at the number of hours needed and creating your own study plan, one of the main advantages of using a prep course is the study plan that they tailor for you. Most prep companies customize a schedule for you personally and hold your hand throughout the whole process, which is super helpful. How it works is that when you sign up with most prep courses, they're going to ask you when your exam date is, what your weekly availability to the study looks like, and then they'll have you take a diagnostic test. Then based on your strengths and weaknesses from your performance on that test, they'll optimize a plan for you based on your study window. It'll tell you how long it's going to take you to study and exactly what you need to study during that period. Plus, the best part of using a prep course's study schedule as opposed to mapping out your own is that your schedule within the program updates and changes based on your progress and performance. Most prep companies will add or remove assignments based on how you're coming along and doing in your practice sets, which I think is a big value add. But there's also other reasons to use a prep course as well, besides just telling you how long you're going to need to study. When you study alone with your own schedule and resources, you're usually limited to just using books and practice problems. But the nice thing is that full prep programs use these same materials, but also layer on live instruction, on-demand video lectures, performance analytics, and progress reports, and email support, flashcards, and just a bunch of useful tools. In other words, you get more robust study tools with a prep course versus the DIY approach. So for those reasons, getting a customized study plan and more robust study resources, I always recommend grabbing a full prep course over just a book from Amazon. And by the way, if you do take my advice and opt for a prep course, I have a couple recommendations for you. We've tested and used just about every GMAT prep program out there at this point, so if you're trying to keep costs down, I would recommend Magoosh. There are several budget prep courses options out there these days, but they're our favorite in this category. You get a study plan, on-demand video lessons for every topic tested on the GMAT, some realistic practice problems, detailed solutions to review for each of those problems in text and video format, and a few other nice resources. This course costs $249 for 6 months of access, which is a great deal in my opinion. So if you're trying to keep things kind of cheap, then go with Magoosh in this category of more affordable prep courses. Or if cost is less of a concern for you, then I would go with Manhattan Prep. They're the elite prep provider in the GMAT prep industry, and their course is 100% worth it. They give you live classes as the central component of your study plan, and that can make a massive difference in your prep. Having a regular live class schedule helps hold you accountable, and the classes offer deeper instruction than what you would get on your own with on-demand videos and books. Plus, you still get all of those other self-paced study tools that I talked about with Magoosh, though generally speaking, you will get more of them and at a generally higher quality. Now, this course will cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000, but like I said, the Manhattan Prep course is very good and I think it's worth it. And even at that, Manhattan Prep as well as Magoosh are both really aggressive with running deals and special promotions, and you can almost always find a discount on their course, so make sure to check for coupon codes. In fact, I'm going to do my best to keep the description down below up to date with the most current discounts that I can find floating around out there, so make sure to give that text below the video screen a good look before buying. You can usually save at least 10 or 20%, if not more, with each of these companies, so make sure to check that out. But anyway, that sort of covers everything that I wanted to talk about in this video, so let me give you some quick final thoughts. But actually, before I get to that, I should just mention that since you're studying for the GMAT, we actually give away a free prep course every single month here at Test Prep Insight. It's really easy to get entered in this contest and everyone is eligible. I'll put all the details down below in the description, but just know it takes like 10 seconds and hey, you never know, you could win a totally free GMAT prep course. Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, how long it's going to take you to study for the GMAT is going to depend on a number of factors. Again, take a practice test to see your baseline, firm up your target score, be honest about your strengths and weaknesses as they relate to what's tested on the exam, and then nail down your studying availability. Once you do that, treat that 100 to 200 hour rule like a sliding scale and kind of just estimate where you fall in there. Or if you really want to remove the guesswork, just sign up for a prep course. That's what I would personally do. But anyway, I hope this video has been helpful and you learned a little something. If so, please return the favor by subscribing to our channel, liking this video, and drop me a quick comment below. That would be really appreciated. And again, if you want to see that full detailed written guide that I mentioned early on in this video, just hop on over to our website. Again, that's testprepinsight.com, or you can always check out the other videos we have on our YouTube channel. Got a bunch of great content out there. But as always, thanks for watching, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next one.